Cheyenne, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Cheers.
I'm so excited. I were locking
Girl, I
teenagers
don't
up
know.
in basements together, and that's where I had my first kiss after carrying a cross for 2 miles downtown because they wanted us to feel how Jesus felt when he had to carry his own cross, and then everybody got horny and I had my first kiss. So unpack that as you will. One of the most hurtful things that I think my husband ever said to me was, well, you're really sensitive. And I was like, the fuck?
Yeah, I'm a tough cookie, but on the inside, I was like, I don't feel tough.
Oh, period. Yeah. Not even the cookie. I'm the ingredients in the bowl still sloshing around. I'm not even cooked
the
yet.
sugar and the chocolate.
Look, I only have so much energy in this day, and how much am I going to put into talking to this person?
Of
If they're
course.
dumb as fuck, very little. And fuck it, we ball.
Yes.
Fuck
yeah.
it, we get married at the courthouse.
Fuck it, we rage.
Yes.
Well, I keep learning that the phrase of treat others as you would have them treat you or how you'd like to be treated does not work. It really doesn't.
Because no one wants to be treated like you want to be treated.
No, most people don't.
Yeah, same. They're like, I'm just vibing. And on the one hand, I'm envious. I'm like, well, fuck, I've never just
But
vibed a day in my
almost
life.
they're never. You know
You're
what I mean?
not vibing when you think you're vibing.
No, because like they may not know their boundaries, but they
Yeah.
certainly need
That's
them.
not a vibe.
Yeah, no.
Not knowing your boundaries is not a vibe.
It's not. Like I crushed a ladybug when I was like 5, and it was like a traumatic
I
experience.
used to pull the legs off grasshoppers.
We're not the same. That. Oh my god. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Curio City. I'm Lauren.
I'm Adam.
And we're happy that you're here today, where you stay curious, and we're all about people's stories, and we love people's functions, and it's not about the opinions they hold, but the stories and how they got there.
I love that entire sentiment, and I feel like that was so evident through this whole episode, but we'll get to that in a little bit.
Yeah.
I just like, it's this space, and the people that listen to this podcast have embraced so fully the idea of holding nuance, and that's beautiful.
And it's the freaking best.
It really is.
And yeah, so how are you feeling? Let's do a little catch up. I think it's funny that we're actually recording this intro on a Friday night, where we recorded Friday Night Rager on a Monday to avoid recording on a Friday night to give ourselves a break. And here we are.
We don't get breaks.
We
just got our foot on the gas.
The hustle is real with
but
us.
I feel good this week. I feel really inspired. Like I feel like I've been consuming the right content to keep me on like the path of inspiration.
Good.
It's just like sometimes I tend to, so because I do a lot of technical work, I tend to listen to a lot of things that are like fantasy or like some sort of fiction where it kind of like lets me escape my reality of like technical thought and whatever.
Yeah.
But this week I've felt so motivated to drive our podcast and the things that I like to do forward. Like I just want to build something, and that has just really led me to listening to really inspirational podcasts that are directly in line with what I want to be doing.
That's all I do. So that's why like I guess I listen to like self-help stuff, but it's whatever I'm needing help in. So sometimes I'm just like I'm spying on people in careers that I aspire to be in, or like I soak up multiple interviews from this like person who like thinks a certain way. It's like I think that's going to always like help move me forward. I'm not somebody who does like a lot of fantasy stuff because
but you also try on a lot of different things just in your mind. So I feel like you're almost writing fiction stories about your own life by consuming content and imagining yourself in different lives than what you live.
That's true. I do that. And this week has been really fun because I'm continuing to build out the branding and everything. So it's been fun to like build.
Yeah, it's been so cool to see you in that creative side of things. Yeah,
behind the scenes of the brand and the branding for Curio City and beyond. So that's been really fun. So yeah, this week has been crazy. We've been super busy, but we've been living that hustle life, and I'm about it. So.
Yeah, it's really cool. I love that we just keep growing closer together and also further apart. Like we really have separated so much of what we do in our daily lives now. Yeah. But I feel like our actual passion and our energy just keep growing in the same direction.
I feel like we are back to our business partner era a little bit, which is fun. I
mean, that's how we started. That's like literally I was just a drummer for hire. So it's fun to revisit that season occasionally.
Yeah. So it's been good. So, okay, great. Well, this episode, you guys are going to be hearing from Cheyenne Conrady. She is amazing. She's a good friend.
Brilliant. Yeah.
She is a fellow oldest daughter, so we did talk a lot about that. And yeah, so she's passionate about painting, reading, and critical thinking, things that you'll hear in this episode. are as follows. Deep-rooted feminism inspired by bell hooks. That's like her take on things. We do talk about, the critique of oversimplifying narratives and complexities of cancel culture. Like I said, we do mention the oldest daughter experience, and we really bring that oldest daughter energy, and how her unique role shaped her worldview. We also talk about her family history, and her mother's adoption, and her curiosity about her Indigenous heritage. So that's really cool. Obviously something we relate on.
Yeah.
But we have very different experiences within that. So I'm excited for you guys to hear that.
I feel like this episode was just so relatable. Just on the tangent of like relatability to all of that. It just was absolutely so easy to jump in and put yourself in the situations that you guys were talking about. Like it's just, you kind of just grab so many pieces of normal life and
both of
really
us
put some stories to it.
Yeah, I mean, I think we were both a bit of storytellers in ways, and we kind of, it was a nice complement of conversation. I feel like the way we hold, I don't know, the way we both hold conversation. And we also talk about her growing up without religion, but she was in a religious community, and so she shared her insights of her challenges and the lessons she got from that. And then lastly, we talked about her recent spiritual awakening, and just that transformative journey that it's been for her life. So anyway, that's kind of the summary of my conversation with Cheyenne. Adam, any other words to add to that?
I'm just excited for you guys to listen to this because it's so upbeat. It's so funny. Like there's so many moments that I just caught myself laughing out loud at you guys talking because I feel like you guys have such a, I mean, as you talk about in the episode, that you guys have some similar stuff in your charts and similar personality traits.
Yeah.
And also similar sibling situations that it's just, there's so many micro stories that nobody else would understand that you guys understood from each other.
Yes.
And it creates the funniest moments of like just the most niche relatability between the two of you.
Yes.
But I feel like the way you guys tell the stories, it's relatable to everybody. So that's really fun. I love how funny it is. And it's just, I feel like it's just honest. Like, as you've been interviewing more people, as we've kind of been expanding the branding of the channel and really trying to bring it into like just really raw honesty. Yes, we can end up in conversations like mine, where it's like there's just it's a little bit deeper and it's a little bit heavier. But then you get to have conversations like this that carry just as much like thought and carry just as much weight as the conversations that I want to be having, but it's also just hilarious and fast paced, and just you guys catch each other in such interesting ways that I think is really surprising. And I think our Curiosity family will really enjoy.
Well, on that note, let's dive right in.
Let's jump in.
Welcome, Cheyenne Conrady. Welcome back to the podcast. Today we have Cheyenne Conrady. She is a digital marketing manager by day and a painter, avid reader, constant curiosity cat by night. She is passionate about feminism, bell hook style feminism, art, all art, even the canceled art and canceled artists, critical thinking, hence not canceling culture, and challenging herself and others. She's also an oldest daughter in every way. Cheyenne, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Cheers.
I'm so excited. I oldest daughtered myself right in here by bartending for us, cleaning up the kitchen, and asking for all the rules.
You did. You did ask for the rules.
I know.
There is no rules here. Be yourself.
Okay.
And also, I am, as you know, an oldest daughter.
Yep.
So we're like just checking in on each other, making sure we're all good.
Neither of us actually accomplishing anything. Just being like, are you good? I'm good if you're good.
Exactly. We will get into that today for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, I did not touch anything, but Cheyenne made us Aperol Spritz.
I did.
And this is like full of ice.
Yeah,
so I'm like gonna be crunching. Actually, do you want a straw?
I fuck with a straw.
Okay, I'm gonna get you a straw.
I'm a lip liner girl, so I fuck with a straw.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome to Curiosity. You're another curious cutie. We have a lot in common.
Yeah.
So not just that we're oldest daughters, but you're an Enneagram 5. Mm-hmm. Okay. Are you also an INTJ? Mm-hmm. Okay. What else do we have in common?
I am Pisces, Sun, Virgo rising. I think I'm the opposite.
Yes.
Yes.
That's right. Oh my gosh. That's kind of crazy.
I'm a generator?
Oh, you're a generator. Okay, I'm a projector, so that's our difference.
Yeah, I'm a generator. And the first time I read the human design and I read the generator, and they were like, you would be full of energy, you inspire others. I was like, that is not me. But then whenever I read some of the ways that energy can show up for generators, it changed how I felt. But at first I was like, that is not me.
Yeah. It's interesting because projector, like the human design description of like who I am, I love, because everything else that I take like a test of, I'm, as a Virgo, that's very like detail oriented or like just about your well-being. It's a little bit more like harsher. It's brainy,
Totally.
Earthy, whatever. But then we have INTJ, again, thinker, judgment, like all these different things. And then with project or even Enneagram, okay, then 5. Again, that's like very in your head. It's like introvert, like all these different things. And then with projector, it's like, it talks a lot about being like soft and how much time and space you need between you and people, but also you and like your work, and like how much space you need in your day, because you can get like, as a projector, we get a lot done in like 3 hours versus like some other people who kind of have that grind going all day. For me, it's like, I expect myself as a Virgo, and as all the other quizzes that I've taken of myself, I expect myself to be this like super grind person who has all this energy to get all this work done. And I have that energy, but it's in bursts. And so the projector, the human design, like has shown me that that's how I work best. So it's allowed me to like embrace my soft side like a lot better. It like speaks to that versus everything else. It's just like that I feel like it just talks a lot about my grind.
That makes sense. I felt really seen whenever I learned more in depth about the Enneagram and found out that I was a 5-wing 4, because I am such a brainy person, very stuck in my head. I'm sure anyone would say that, but I do have a real depth of feeling and what I feel is a vast capacity for empathy. And every time you read INTJ and you read vibes and whatever, and Virgo rising, it's like everything has to be in one place. Everything, you're very judgmental, all these things. And I mean, I do have diagnosed OCD, so they're not wrong, but I was like, I feel things too.
Yeah. So I also have like perfection anxiety when I was a kid. So like, I understand like where these things come from, but I'm like, I have other sides to me.
Stuff. Yeah. And so reading the 5-wing 4, I was like, yeah, like I'm super artsy and I love making my space beautiful. It's the first thing I noticed when I walk in here was how I felt in here and how it looked.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
That is very much a core part of me. So I enjoyed finding the complexity and depth to that. And I think that's true in human design or the Enneagram or astrology or whatever.
We're so much more complex.
Yeah, people are so quick to dismiss those things because they think that we can't be categorized, that everything is complex, but everything is. That's why you have to think in depth about it.
Yeah.
Or like think critically before you dismiss it.
Yeah. It's interesting, as much as I'm learning that like I say that I like a very diverse community, and I do, and in my head and heart I do, but the more I have conversations, especially on the podcast, I'm like, wait a second, all these people are basically reflections of myself.
Totally.
So I'm like, wait, maybe it's not as diverse as I think, but the people who I admire and potentially see myself in also have the heart posture of wanting a diverse thoughts and diverse people around them. So it's like that, I feel like I'm attracted to people with the like similar thought processes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I would challenge you on that for sure, because from what I know of the people in your life, they may have similar values, similar openness to experience or other people's opinions, but they are vastly different personalities. Like you have
the personalities are very different.
I know, the personalities are very different. Where they come from is very different.
Yes.
So like at the end, you may have all wound up in this place where you are somewhat similar and being open to other people, but that's a good quality to have.
Right. That's true. And the personalities are quite different, but it's like the way
how they got there.
True. Yeah. True. The way I see people though is so much of like, is their brain. Like I see people via the way they think. And I think that's part of why I like being like open and having different like conversations with people, because I'm like, I don't really care as much what you're standing for or like, I more so care like how you got there.
100%.
That's way more interesting to me. And I feel like that's reflected back in my community.
100%. Yeah.
You know?
How you got how we all arrived here to being open and curious and willing to hold space for others.
Yes.
And everyone's journey definitely looks different. And in what I know of your community, particularly in your community.
I hope so. I think so too.
Definitely.
But okay. I'm so glad like you came in today and I have like everything else is like not happening anymore. So I'm like, okay, if we need the afternoon, like we're here.
My husband this morning was asking me like, how long are the episodes?
You're
and I was like, well, I was honest. I was like, I think they're between like 30 minutes and an hour. And he was like, so you'll probably be there like 2 to 3 hours. And I was like, yes, that is me. That is me getting into a conversation with any person. Because like I could go deep about a million things. I'm curious about a million things.
Yeah.
Sometimes I worry I'm a bad podcast guest because I have as many questions as
I'm the same
person on the other end, and I want to hear about your experience. Like relating to each other is the best way to learn, or the best way I've found to learn and connect. So I was like, I could be there a while for sure.
Yep. And you might, and we have the drinks ready for us, so we're ready to go. Okay, so I do have notes, like I said, like I'm gonna have some like questions that I want to make sure I hit. We can kind of go all over the place, of course, I always do, but so first I read off like your bio and I read off like all the things that you do and that you are. I mean, not all the things, but a lot. So I do want to start off with one question saying like, how do you manage your role as a digital marketing manager alongside your interests in art and reading and curiosity?
That is definitely on a spectrum. Sometimes I manage it beautifully and my work is free flowing and my creativity is free flowing and I have time for everything. And then there are times that things are out of balance for sure. I'm in one of those times right now where I'm experiencing quite a bit of burnout and chaos. I've been working really hard for the last few months. We moved, I was promoted at my job, and
congrats.
Thank you, which was really exciting. But I don't work in what I'm passionate about.
That's hard.
And I'm re-unpacking something I thought I had unpacked years ago, which is that oldest daughter mentality of I need to do everything. I need to give my all at everything I do. I can do more than other people, so I should. I have the capacity. I have the resilience. And I will apply that work ethic even in things I don't care about, that I know at the end of my life, I am not going to sit there and say, you know what?
I'm so glad I was the best.
You know what's bringing me peace? I finished that spreadsheet in 2 hours and it would have taken someone else 12. Like that shit's not going to matter to me.
Relatable.
And so I know people hate the word recalibration, but I am always in a mode of like recalibrating.
I like that word.
Reprioritizing.
Yeah.
I need to do that because it is easy for me to take on everything. And I truly think I can, and that is wrong.
Yeah.
And I can't.
Yeah.
And I'm always learning how to balance that. So sometimes I'm creating more and I'm working less, and sometimes I'm working more and creating less. And I'd like to tip my scales back this fall and winter. I'm really looking forward to the season change and having hibernation. I really am. I think it's
me too.
It's in our spirit and our blood to want to do that.
Yeah.
That is
like I want to be in my house creating and nobody talk to me.
Yes, it's a true like paleontological theory that we need to be curled up for a little bit and take a beat. And like you posted about trees the other day and how they root down in the fall, and I loved that, and I feel that I need that right now. And part of where that comes in is needing space. I need space from work, from obligations, from the things that I take on, from the people in my life. I need space to come back to center and create more. And that's what I'm hoping to manifest in the next season of my life.
Okay, I love that. I hope that for you as well.
Thank you.
Because I've been there too. And I've learned through like my oldest daughter syndrome too, is that I do want to be the best and like do the best I can at every single thing. Like if I'm working for somebody else, which is usually when I'm working for somebody else, though, just how I am in my personality, like it's not the thing I'm most passionate about. Like I am the most passionate about my creative projects and like building this podcast and the brand of the podcast and all of that. Now I know that now as of this year, it's like been very prioritized for me. But over the years, I've just learned that anytime I specifically work for anyone else, it's like I know that I want to do the best. So I sometimes rebel myself and I like half-ass things. And I'm just like, I hate working for other people so much that like I will just do the very bare minimum, because I know if I can't do middle. Like I can't be like a medium employee. I'm either like the best thing you've ever seen in your life and I'm completely depleted and I don't exist at all, but you're loving me, or I just have to just basically not like just barely get by, which I think does reflect in my like sibling lineup and my family history as well. It's either like I'm top of the line, I'm leading, I'm like, you know, taking care of everyone. I'm like, it's a lot of energy for me to do that, and I'm depleted.
Yep. Or
I make myself so small, and so like I don't need anything. I don't make any trouble. I'm not gonna. I've talked to Adam about this. It's like I would rather not make a mess than to clean the whole house, because to me, with my family dynamic, I was more afraid of getting in trouble or being wrong or causing more stress on my parents than I was excited about the potential praise of doing something right. So a lot of times I would go like under the radar, and I would just make myself, and I think that's a lot of to do with like Enneagram 5 stuff. That's how I came to discover that's what I was, because like the childhood wound and things like that. And so I would like just make myself so little and so small and so not a trouble. And so anyway, all that being said, as I've become an adult, I've realized that like when I work for other people, it's either I'm the best or you don't want to hire me.
Yeah, completely. I really relate to that in the terms of I do things with high intensity, or it goes on my I don't give a shit list.
Exactly.
I do that with people, like the people that I care about in my life. I will ride or die for them. They know that. And everyone else who's not in that group also knows it. Not because I've like necessarily been shitty to them, or at least I hope not, but because they just know they're not in the club.
Yeah.
And it's not me being elitist or anything. It's just that I give so much energy and intention to the things I care about that I have very little left over for
It's kind of like that
else.
burst, like I was talking about. It's like I either have all of it to give, or it's going to be none of it.
And I would like to work on that.
Same.
Because I want to be able to do the middle sometimes, you know? But for me, it really is, these are the things I care the most about. And I get really wrapped up in thinking about what I'll think at the end of my life and what I'll wish I had prioritized, who I wish I would have spent more time with. And I know I shouldn't worry about that because there's nothing I can do. It'll come when it comes.
Yeah.
But it's hard for me to not stop and step away and get super existential.
It helps you.
It helps me
like,
prioritize and choose.
Yeah.
Where I'm just like, you know what? Fuck this. I won't care about this 5 years from now.
Yep.
So I'm going to walk away. I'm going to shut my computer and walk away and spend time with someone that I love instead. But it does help me make it kind of validates my choices sometimes and helps me make decisions. And then sometimes it's really crippling because it's hard for me to motivate myself to do something I know I don't care about. But we live in a capitalist society. I've got to work. I've got to network. I've got to do whatever, but it's not innate in me. I'll say that.
Yeah, I know. Same, which is kind of crazy. Again, going back to us like wanting to be like so like almost like that OCD and the perfectionism. It's like, anyway, we can go on and on about our brains. But let's talk about, while we're talking about like how you kind of grew up and like your family dynamic. You were the oldest daughter, and your mother was adopted. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah. So I am the oldest child. I have 2 younger brothers. We're pretty far spaced out. So my middle brother is 7.5 years younger than me.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And then my youngest brother is 7 years younger than him.
Oh,
so
okay.
my youngest brother and I are almost 14 years apart.
Wow. Okay.
And we each have that like 7-year gap in generational difference.
Which they say makes it like breaks the lineup of like the siblings. Like it's like after 5 years you're like an only child, but no, it's not that way for you.
No, we are the classic oldest child, middle child, youngest child. I mean, you could put us in a lab and we would prove every theory right. Like,
amazing.
We each carry that personality so heavily.
Okay.
But my parents had me really young and accidentally.
Okay.
And they were not married at the time. They were having a good time, hot and in their 20s. And then I ruined the scene. And so
that kind of checks out for you.
Yes. So
you're like, and it's me. Hi.
I'm a super parentified child. And my parents and I have spoken about this. My mom always joked that I was born 30. And she was right. I have been a little mini adult, or thought I was a little mini adult my entire life.
Same.
And I am now in my 30s trying to figure out how to be childish.
Oh my gosh. You know that speaks to me.
Yeah, be comforting to my inner child and make choices to protect her now and to even like let her be free. Something that my partner and I talk about a lot is it takes a lot to get me to be silly.
Yeah.
And he's youngest child, super silly, the only boy in his family, like loves to have a silly good fun time. And I love that about him, and I love having that in my household. And it takes a lot of comfortability and time for me to get there. We had already been married for a year when at some point he was still like, I mean, I know you're not entirely comfortable. Like, I know that.
Yeah.
And I was like, I love having you here. I'm so comfortable with you. You're my best friend. And he was like, yeah, but you're not all the way relaxed.
Yeah.
You know, I've seen you around your family, right?
Yeah.
Like, I know what you're like when you're like that. And I was like, damn, he's right. And probably other people have thought this and just never said it to me,
right.
you know, my friends or whatever. But anyway, all of that to say, yeah, super parentified, oldest daughter, only daughter. Grew up in small town Oklahoma. So I graduated with, I think, 89 people.
Wow.
And when I was living there, there were only 3,000 people in our town.
Oh my gosh.
I lived on a red dirt road. My closest neighbor was a mile away.
Wow.
We were the only family at that time that I knew that didn't go to church.
Okay.
And
that's kind of isolating.
It is honestly, it is super isolating because
in a small town like that, because it's like religion is so huge.
Religion's huge, and not just for the God aspect, but for the community aspect.
Of course, yeah.
Everyone else is going to youth group and going on mission trips and having all of these bonding experiences that you are separate from. But on the other hand, I wasn't super interested in religion, and I didn't feel like it was missing from my life. I was very close-knit with my family. I mean, we lived out on a red dirt road 15 miles outside of town, which is isolating as well. And my little brothers were my best friends. So I didn't feel like I was missing out on much until I noticed all the other kids had inside jokes and experiences that I hadn't been a part of.
How old were you when you like realized that?
Well, I'll say this. When I was anywhere between 9 to 14, I specifically remember girls inviting me over for sleepovers, specifically on Saturdays because their mothers thought I needed church in my life and wanted me to go to church with them on Sunday.
Okay.
And I've got to give huge kudos to my parents, particularly my dad, because I could call and I could be like,
this is
Dad,
weird.
it's Cheyenne. I've got a real bad tummy ache. I need you to come get me now. And he'd be like, is everything okay? And I'd be like, yeah, I'm flowing up, you gotta come get me. And then he'd like roll up and I'd be like, Dad, they were trying to make me go to church. And he's like, well, you don't have to do anything you don't want to do. And I was like,
good dad. That's so good.
He had grown up in the Catholic Church, so
Okay.
he was pretty big on you make your own choices, you will find your own way.
I love that.
If you do with it when it comes to religion. And what has been really beautiful is now he's in his 50s. My parents divorced a few years ago, and he has returned to church, not the Catholic Church, but to church in his own way.
Yeah.
And my mom has returned to
found his
spirituality.
way.
Exactly, in her own way. And I think that's really beautiful. But yeah, growing up, I was one of the only non-religious kids that I knew, and it was really weird.
Yeah. But did you like learn the lingo, or was it like you heard them talking and you were like, this is not, I don't understand what they're saying?
I'm trying to think of the way to say, I can pick up lingo quickly.
Yeah.
And not having grown up with groupthink being imparted on me, I found it really fascinating from the outside.
Okay.
I'm a 5, and I have been a little 5 my whole life. The observing of others and being like, that's fucking weird.
So you did think it was weird.
I tried every single church in my hometown. I had befriended kids because like they went to the Mormon church or to the Jewish temple, and I wanted to see what that was all about.
Because you just wanted to know.
I wanted to see what was going on in there.
Epitome of a curious
Some
cutie.
of them were really secretive too, so I was like, I've got to get in there and see what these people are doing.
That's so funny.
And I, as like a parentified child, I really felt like I could go in anywhere and be respectful of the group
yeah, of course,
and what
of
they
course.
had going on, and just be curious. But it wasn't for me at the time. I was not looking for God. God wasn't looking for me.
No, yeah, you were just so fascinated.
I was like, I've got to see what these kids are doing.
You're like, this is cultural.
And let me tell you this as a bit of my inspiration. A lot of the boys were going to church, and I was curious about that. And I did have my first kiss at a church lock-in over Easter.
Of course. Oh, that's such a juicy. I love that.
I have got questions about why churches do lock-ins, why we're locking
Girl, I don't
teenagers up
know.
in basements together, and that's where I had my first kiss after carrying a cross for 2 miles downtown because they wanted us to feel how Jesus felt when he had to carry his own cross, and then everybody got horny and I had my first kiss. So unpack that as you will. But
Best story. I can't wait to cut that one. That's going to be a good one.
That was real. So, but that wasn't my only curiosity, obviously, for going to church. But it was
Sure.
a thing. All the other kids were doing it, and all the girls were having somewhere to go and get dressed up on Sunday. And
there's an appeal in that.
Of course,
period.
absolutely. And, to have a purpose and a plan and a schedule and a routine. I have OCD. I was curious about how everyone else felt compelled to do this on Sunday. And in my house, we just woke up slow, made breakfast, and watched movies together, which was a loving routine, too. And, of course, I'm leaving out all the dysfunction. But,
Right, well.
but, we had our own routines that were amazing, and I just wondered why other people were doing it differently.
We're doing it different.
But spirituality didn't come to me till much later in life.
Okay, so when did you? I have so many things I would want to diverge, but I do want to say, I think that's just so fascinating. I love that arc. You have many arcs to who you are. So I love that. But okay, so only recently I feel like you've gotten into spirituality and made it your own.
I came into spirituality a few years ago through an anonymous form of group therapy, and
Oh, interesting.
it really changed my life. I joined because I felt like I had really been impacted by other people's actions, and I had chosen specific people and specific life paths based on something that I obviously needed to heal within myself. I didn't know that was why I joined at the time. I just knew that I needed help and that I needed support. And frankly, community hasn't really been a big part of my life for most of my life. I've been a pretty isolated individual.
I've had fake community that's not even fake friends, but I mean, I thought I had community, but anytime I've looked back on any era of my life, I didn't actually have any friends. It was this, my parents, my family, and the church told me I had community. So I always thought I did because they just said I did, but I did not have I didn't have friends. I wasn't a very social kid. I had one friend per era of my life. And anyway, I just think that's interesting, what people can say to you as well, that you just believe. I don't know if you are that way.
For me, it was honestly because I grew up so close-knit with my family. Yeah. And I had friends, but I had one best friend. I met her when I was 7 years old. Shouts out Caitlin. We're still friends to this day.
Shout out BFF.
She's been my best friend since I was 7 years old. She still lives in my hometown. She's a teacher there. She sees my family more than I do. But she fell into my family and became a part of our dynamic, which each of my siblings has a tendency to do with their friends as well.
Okay.
My family was so close-knit that I had that community. And so I, didn't feel as much of a need to build other community, but also and this is not to blame my family, this is on me, but I felt that if I didn't have that level of acceptance for my flaws, that level of dysfunction and chaos, that level of comfort, then something wasn't comfortable, and I didn't want to lean into it with intimacy. And I still, to this day, I struggle with being avoidant and being detached. That's still a core wound that I have, but I think I wouldn't say inability, but lack of prioritization for community for a good portion of my life came from having a pretty core community back home. So, I'm 30 years old, and I FaceTime with my brothers almost every day.
Oh, that's so special.
And a lot of people don't have sibling relationships like that. We live hundreds of miles away from each other, and we're 7 and 14 years apart.
That's so wild.
We maintain closeness largely, which is on me as the oldest sibling. I feel like I have built that foundation with them, and it's taken a lot of effort throughout my life, but been worth doing. But yeah, I didn't have super close friendships until I would say the last 5 years, and I didn't have spirituality until then either.
So was there anything, what caused that spiritual journey to begin?
I had already been in therapy for a few years.
Oh, right.
And
the group
that
therapy
had really helped. I was in CBT therapy. I was seeing a one-on-one therapist since on my 25th birthday. I went for the first time because I felt like I was having a quarter life crisis, which I was.
Oh yeah, I also had a quarter life crisis.
I was. And that was amazing. I had one-on-one therapy, and that was great. But how would I put this? I entered a relationship that brought to light a lot of the things I needed to heal. And it was very isolating. It was during the pandemic, so it was environmentally isolating.
Right.
It was a secret that wasn't mine to tell, and that out of fear and shame in myself. I felt I couldn't share. So
about the relationship?
And about what was going on.
Okay.
And so all of that caused me to turn inward even more than I already have my whole life, where I just built a shell around me. And the friend that we share, Kelsey, she and I had just met during that time, actually.
Okay.
And I really felt that I had to make a change in my life, and I wasn't sure where to start, because it wasn't just that relationship or what that person was doing or what they were struggling with. It was really, I picked that person, I put myself on that life path. There's something in me that needs healing and still always will.
Yeah.
And I kind of hit my version of a rock bottom and was like, I need help. I need to find a place where I can heal this. And a therapist suggested that I try something else. And that was where I started group therapy.
Okay. So that was you.
I was 20.
You were 25, 26? 27? Okay.
27, 28. Yeah, it was in 2021.
Okay. So then what is your spirituality? You said you're like more spiritual now. Like, what does that look like for you now?
It is an acceptance that I am not God, which was a huge one for me.
Okay.
One of the first things in my group therapy we had to do is accept that there is something greater than ourselves out there.
Okay.
And that was hard for me, not because I think I'm the greatest, but because I have always needed to have control.
Right. You're like, I can't trust anyone else.
And I really didn't. And also because I felt like I had never even considered God or a higher power in any capacity. I really hadn't thought of it. And not just that, I never thought anyone was there for me. To not just to save me, but like having my back.
Have your back, yeah.
Considering me at all. And that's not a slight to anyone in my life, but the wall I have built around myself, and I still every day have to take a brick out of, is that there are people who want to be close to me. Yeah. There are things bigger than me. There is stuff I can't control out there. And accepting that in some form of spirituality is really freeing for me. But that was a real struggle of just accepting that I don't have control and that maybe good things are going to come to me that I can't force. So spirituality now looks to me like considering every day that I'm not God, I don't have control, I can't change things, and the things I can change, I should. I do daily affirmation readings and that work through childhood trauma and the choices we make today, how we show up in relationships. It was really a shift in thinking for me in spirituality and feeling like something is bigger than me and listening to whatever calls to me in my gut.
Yeah.
And feeling, I know this may sound a little silly, but feeling hopeful. Spirituality brought me that for the first time. Instead of just being realistic and trying to force the outcomes I wanted, just laying back and being hopeful.
Oh, that's so good. Like we mentioned, like we have like the reverse, like Virgo and Pisces. And they say that rising signs are like, there's multiple ways to kind of interpret it. But one of the ways that I actually really have found to enjoy is that sometimes people say or believe that your rising sign represents who you were as a child way before you learned like the context of the way you're supposed to show up in the world and the layers you put on to protect yourself, which would be fascinating in your like in your like experience, because yours is Virgo rising. So I'm not sure how that would like apply with your life. But for me personally, as a Virgo sun and Pisces rising, it's kind of easy to like see what that would look like, because even just in and of itself, you could be like, oh, a Virgo is an adult and a Pisces is like a child. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like a little fairy.
Pisces is a
like
little fairy.
You can just kind of already paint that picture and see how that would like relate. Do you feel like that has like true for you?
I will say that I have been a measured person, a person who does things right, a person who feels others should do things right for my whole life, which feels very Virgo. Something that someone once said to me was, your rising sign is what you felt the need to be as a child and what you think the world expects of you.
Okay, so it's kind of the opposite.
And I don't know. I mean, like you said, there's so many ways to interpret it, but I did feel that way because I do feel I took on these like Virgo characteristics for sure as a child, as a coping mechanism.
Okay.
And I still to this day think that what is valuable in me is doing things right, being self-sufficient, being independent, not being a burden to anyone. And I, my whole life, have really rejected being a Pisces. I mean, when people ask me what's your sign, I'll be like,
you always say like, I'm a
Pisces, but I'm a Taurus moon and a Virgo rising. I got to get that in there before they say anything, because every time you read about Pisces, they're so emotional and they're always lost in their daydreams.
I'm the same way. Like I always say all three.
That's
because
so
I'm
funny.
like, look, I'm not
you
all
gotta
that
get the whole picture.
I'm not all that tense because I'm a Virgo sun and a Capricorn moon.
Oh, my husband's a Capricorn moon. Y'all are some freaks.
Yeah, so our emotions are very like we keep them locked, baby. So I'm like, I'm not all that intense, so I want people to know that I have a Pisces rising. So it's interesting that you say that, because I'm like, oh, I do want people to know, like, I'm free. I'm a little butterfly. I'm a fairy.
That's so
like
funny.
It's something I'm like, I crave for people to see that I'm silly. I crave for people to see that I'm like dreamy, because I feel so much like people perceive me as, and this has to do with my lineup again in the family, because my sister was like very bubbly, very extroverted. Her face is literally formed with a smile, even though she's a Capricorn. She like hates everyone, but like she looks like she's smiling, you know what I mean? And I'm like on the inside, I'm gooey on the inside with the Pisces rising, I think. But what people and what I see them perceiving me as is the Virgo, is the Capricorn, is this harsh, whatever, cold, stern, stoic. And so now I feel like as an adult, I love to tell people I have Pisces rising. So that's interesting.
I'm
that
the opposite.
take.
Yeah, I don't want anyone to see me as emotional or dreamy or lost in the clouds or can't take care of myself.
Fascinating.
I have been burying my Pisces my whole life, and I'm having to come to terms with that other people know it about me. One of the most hurtful things that I think my husband ever said to me was, well, you're really sensitive. And I was like, the fuck? That's crazy you would say that. And he's much more emotional than me. Like, he'll weep at a commercial. He cries in arguments. He presents as having a lot more emotions than me.
Interesting, as a Capricorn moon.
He's Pisces sun, though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Both Pisces. Okay, interesting.
But he was like, well, you're really sensitive. And I was like, that's not true. And then he was like, well, we'll see. He's asked my brothers. He's asked my other friends. And everyone's like, yeah, Cheyenne's really sensitive. And I was like, damn.
That's interesting.
So it's obviously not a secret.
But you were offended by that, like,
I am
comment.
now. In this moment, I'm offended.
That's so funny, because as soon as Adam told me I was sensitive, I like broke, like in the best way. I was like, somebody sees me as soft, because growing up, my mom, one of the things, and we've talked about this, she knows, but one of the hardest things that like I kind of had to grapple with was like, she called me a tough cookie a lot.
Oh, yeah. Being born 30, being a tough cookie, having a thick skin.
Yeah.
You'll always be fine. You always take care of yourself.
I'll always be fine. I'll always be fine. I'll take care of myself. That's like, that is said over and over and over and over. So I'm like, yeah, I'm a tough cookie. But on the inside, I was like, I don't feel tough.
Oh, period. Yeah.
Like, I'm like,
cookie, yeah.
I'm like,
I'm not even the cookie. I'm the ingredients in the bowl still sloshing around. I'm not even cooked
the
yet.
sugar and the chocolate, like, yeah. No, exactly. And so when it's funny, because when he said that to me, I was like, that just, it made me like turn into a puddle and just really embrace that. Again, back to like, I loved my human design. So I was like, somebody sees me as soft.
I hate to feel seen. It's something I'm working on every day.
Interesting.
It's something I'm working
like
on.
Like if somebody
every
reads you, you're like uncomfortable.
Yeah, I feel violated.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I feel nervous being on video at all, and I don't like anyone hearing my voice. Not because I don't like my voice. I don't want to be known. I have a real issue with that.
We don't relate on that.
I don't know.
So that has to be like a family.
It is really just, it's a protection thing, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I very much wanted, when I was growing up, to not be seen as less than or struggling. I did not want pity. And I still to this day have a fear that if I am seen, that I will be weak or vulnerable. And being vulnerable is really difficult for me. It's something I'm working on, and I know the people in my life love to feel connected and love for me to be vulnerable. But it is hard for me. And so my relationships where people have been patient to let that blossom have been so beautiful. Like my husband mentioning a year in, well, you're really sensitive. And I've known that since day one.
Yeah.
In one way, I was like, oh my God, I can't be seen this way. And in the other way, I was like, damn, and he has loved me for 365 days plus. With Kelsey, she met me in a place where I was really unhealthy and my walls had never been higher. And damn it, if she didn't still have margaritas with me every Wednesday and wait for those walls to come down. Like, the patience and love that other people show me does make me feel really soft inside.
Yeah.
It's just something I struggle with.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's how I feel too, but I feel like I approach it very differently. I'm
Good
like
for you.
reaching for, well, and I don't even know if it's a good thing. I'm just saying we take opposite approach there.
Yeah.
Okay. But I did want to ask you and also add to the conversation that you're also Indigenous. So that's a big part of your story.
Yeah. So my mom was adopted. Going back to that, you asked me that like probably 20 minutes ago. Here we are. My mom was adopted and my adoptive grandparents were amazing. My adoptive grandfather was a 5.
Okay.
And we spent most of my childhood together, he and I, one-on-one. And he was a scientist. And I think that really built my personality.
Yeah.
For sure. But so her adoptive parents were amazing, but she was always very curious about where she came from. And me and my brothers all look identical to my dad.
Okay.
It's just the face keeps getting replanted.
That's funny.
And she really wanted to know that there were people out there who looked like her and who were from where she was from. Everyone has a desire to know that we are not alone.
Yep.
And we're all curious about where we come from, you know, even I am in a different way and to a different extent, but who doesn't want to know how you got here, how your fucking dot got on the map somehow.
Yeah.
So she was really curious about that growing up and never got to have the closure or the welcoming that she wanted.
Yeah.
And so we had to piece together information, which something Lauren and I have talked about includes health-wise. You know, when you come from a closed adoption, then you have children, you guys don't know what you're up against.
Yeah.
And we had to hear things from the few biological family members that she ever got into contact with. And I had to be tested for the BRCA gene because it sounded like cancer was a big thing and we weren't really sure what it was caused by. And there were all these mysteries. There's so much mystery shrouded there that I think was very painful for her. And of course, I don't know that experience and it's not necessarily mine to share. But one thing that was a big part of that is that we knew her father was Indigenous. And we also lived in Oklahoma, where I come from, everyone is Indigenous. It's all over the place. No matter how white somebody is, they have some portion of Cherokee or whatever.
Yeah.
And so it was just, okay, well, we all are. It's not really anything that special. And then when I got out into the world, I realized that's not everyone's story.
Yeah.
And there's such heritage there. And there are so many people that can tell you, even if you don't know exactly where you came from, you can learn about the surrounding culture and the beliefs and the things that happened to those people who were native here. And it is interesting to see from the outside. It is again kind of like being the only kid that didn't go to church in that I can see from the outside, but I will never be able to get a card. I will never be able to know exactly.
Because she never got in contact. Okay.
No. And he is no longer alive, so it's not going to happen. And so we will just never know. And it is interesting to only be able to look from the outside.
Yeah.
Definitely like looking through a window. And a big part of that culture is not wanting to be appropriated and not wanting outsiders to come in and not understand. So I understand why the walls are high, but it is hard for someone like me who can't ever provide a paper or give you an exact, I don't know.
Yeah.
And in modeling over the course of the last 15 years, so many times a makeup artist has asked me, what are you? And I'm a white girl. I don't know. I'm a white girl. I'm sure it's not that interesting. And they're like, no, I see some whatever. And I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah. It's interesting because I know we've talked about it, like, you know, just the two of us, that, you know, your mom has her own story and like her own experience with this. And something that like you hadn't heard of before was the 60s swoop. And so not that necessarily that was her story,
right?
But I do know that a lot of people her age and maybe a little older have experienced very similar things because of that. So essentially it was during the 60s, during a time when a lot of Native kids were taken by the government and given up, they're put in foster care and were adopted by white families. And there's a long history there and we can go into that. But basically there are a lot of people who have experienced similar things. Even with the Missing Matoaka project, the guy that I ended up working alongside, that he was like the creative director, we met through the project. We realized like both our grandparents went to the same exact residential school.
Wow.
Yeah. And their names are on the plaque are literally like 7 names from each other, which is freaking crazy.
Red string theory is real.
It really is.
Yeah.
But his mother, so he had to do a lot of reconnection because his mother was adopted, and that was her experience, was the 60 scoop. And so she worked really hard to find her family, where she came from. And he told me that part of her story was that when she had children, it was the first time that she was like, oh, this is my family, because it was like her blood, you know?
Yeah.
And it was like that experience, and she worked really hard. They were like, my friend Derek, who again part of the project, he was like, and he was older by the time he got his status card, which status cards they don't matter, but it is that sense of like security in a weird way. So I understand that like there would be a deep desire to have it if I did not also have it. So I definitely understand why that's a big deal.
Where I come from, it matters at school, like you present your status card so that you get to partake in certain activities. It matters with what benefits you get to have, and it's a big part of the community there. I mean, I grew up where we went to powwows on school field trips.
Wow.
And I didn't realize that not everyone did that until I got out into the world.
Yeah, I did not.
Okay.
At all. I was literally the only Native Indigenous kid that anyone had ever heard of for miles.
Yeah, I mean, so my husband's from the Northeast, and the first time I brought him home, we drove. And so we drove all the way through eastern Oklahoma to get to my hometown. And I mean, there are teepees everywhere. There are signs that tell you what tribe is native there and where you can find information on them. And there is Native American symbolism all over. I mean, on government buildings, everywhere. And I am not saying Oklahoma does it perfectly by any means, but there is a lot of outward representation.
Like, at least kids growing up understand that they exist. Like, kids literally used to tell me I was lying because they thought natives were like mermaids.
That's so crazy to me. Yeah, where I come from, it is just everyone is. And so they are allowed to exist, but I am sure that they undergo a lot of experiences that I don't know about.
Yeah.
But it was interesting to hear from him, oh, we don't have this where I come from. Oh, I've never seen this before.
Yeah.
And I was like, but Indigenous people are everywhere, particularly up in the Northeast. There was a lot of Native people up there, and they just aren't paid that same respect, or they aren't still represented. And I didn't realize I was lucky to have that where I come from. And I'm sure it wasn't perfect, but I am glad that we had it. And even if I didn't get to fully partake, I'm glad that it exists.
But you did have the like experience of knowing what you weren't partaking in. You know, true. Like you did have that knowledge.
Which was another community that I wasn't in.
You were like on the outside.
Another community I'm looking through the window of. Yeah.
That's fascinating.
For sure.
Yeah, that's like adds to the pile of the things. So you're just like, I want this wall shield because already I'm an outsider.
Right.
So let me just like continue what I know.
Let me just carry the window with me everywhere.
Literally. Exactly. It's fascinating too with like being, I consider myself mixed just because like my dad grew up like going to the res, living on the res with his grandparents, and like our culture, it was like growing up, my mom is white, my dad's Indigenous. You don't have
to explain it to me.
And so, but I'm just saying for people listening, like I consider myself mixed in that. And one of the things that's like I've spoken on now several times, but it's just something I love to harp on, is that, back when a couple of years ago, I was realizing how much nuance meant to me, like how much like, holding two truths at once meant to me. And this is like during a time when like social justice warrior Lauren was like starting to like calm down because she was like just angry at the world at all times.
Totally.
So I was like learning that and learning to see through the lens of, well, maybe there's nuance here. Maybe there's another way to see this. Maybe there's more than just the binary lenses I'm seeing the world through. And once I like kind of propelled through that season of my life of being able to hold two truths at once, I was like, I kind of came to this realization that a big part of that has to do with me reckoning with also holding two truths at once in my own
yourself.
body
Yeah.
and in my own lived experience. And I realized that that's like why that means so much to me, even though I didn't consciously think about that when like approaching like sociopolitical issues or whatever. It does matter, and it does affect like holding multiple truths within your body and within your like family's experience does give you that edge of, no, we need nuance. Do you feel like that's true for you?
I am so passionate about that, and it's something I talk about a lot, and a place of that I struggle to connect with others in my life who aren't able to do that. And everyone has their own reasons for clinging to the things that they need to and feeling passionate about the things that they do. And I don't want to erase that, but people who can't understand nuance, who can't hold two things at once, who can't, even if they disagree, see how another person got somewhere, that level of critical thinking for me determines whether or not we can have intelligent conversation.
Right. Yeah.
Determines how much energy I will put into.
Like, I don't want to judge you for that, but I also kind of have to navigate our conversation or interactions.
I mean, you know, we have such a negative connotation around judgment, and sometimes judgment is fucking mean, and sometimes it's wrong, and sometimes it's petty, and sometimes it is just
assessing.
That's literally the word I was about to use. I know this is very five, but assessing my level of safety in this conversation.
Of course.
My level of, look, I only have so much energy in this day, and how much am I going to put into talking to this person? If they're dumb as fuck, very little. And so for me, nuance is so important, and something I say often, even in conflict, if I'm saying one thing and the other person is saying another, I will just say two things can be true. Now what?
Yeah.
We are both right. You know, we both feel a certain way. Maybe there's not even a right. Maybe we just feel or think a certain way. And then what? How are we going to keep moving together? And for me, black and white thinking is a crutch I know many people need, but is only doing a disservice to like yourself, to others, to any sociopolitical issues you're thinking about.
Yeah.
You are limiting yourself in what you understand and in how passionate you could be about your own side of things. Because for me, as a 5, the more educated you are, the more you can feel how you feel, baby.
Right.
But you got to get there first. We can't just assign belief to something because your favorite celebrity said it, or because you read one article about it, or because in conversation the smartest person you think you know had this take. Like, decide for your fucking self. That's really important to me. And being able to see whole people, particularly women, but whole people in general, they're 360 degrees all the way around, have their own lives, have their own things going on, and they may be this awful thing and they may do this great thing.
Right.
That sucks. That's weird.
Right.
You have to hold that anyway.
Yep.
It's real. You cannot erase either thing. So then what? And I think we really struggle as a society right now to do the then what.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I completely agree. Yeah. I feel like it's like what keeps us like learning, and what people should have that. In my mind, I'm like, people should have that ability. Like, it should be something we're taught. Unfortunately, we're not, to be able to hold two truths at once. It's just, we live in such a binary world who want to see like, oh, this is bad, this is good. And I know you spoke about, like, you know, even in your bio, you spoke about being like a feminist, and that bell hooks is like inspirational to you. And I love that. And so like what does that like, what does that mean for you, and how you like challenge societal norms and whatever?
If I do, and maybe I don't, maybe somebody's gonna be like, let me tell you one thing about that girl, she doesn't, and that's fine. I would love to hear it. But for me, I am learning every day, as we all are. But I spent a good portion of my 20s being angry with how society treated me and angry at men. And I think a lot of people want to erase that kind of experience. It's like, oh, you must have father issues. Well, newsflash, I love my dad. My dad's the best. So it ain't that. It's got to be something else. And it is just a societal way that we are all taught to be misogynist. Like, we live in a patriarchy. We all have internalized misogyny. I do. You do. Everyone does.
We all do.
And so I spent a good time feeling feminist, but in the I hate men kind of way. And a hard part of getting older and trying to get wiser is learning the patriarchy harms everyone.
Yes.
And whether you are male, female, no matter how you present, you are harmed in some way by the patriarchy, and holding all of those things at once is really tough. Because we want to be angry, and some things are wrong, and we're like, why should we have to put up with this?
Yeah.
And people's experience are valid no matter where they come from or how they identify. And at the same time, patriarchy harms everyone, and we are all affected by it. So then what?
Right. Well, you married a man.
I married a man, which was very off-brand for me. And I never wanted to get married.
Yeah, why?
Never planned on getting married.
What's the deal there?
That's a good question. I don't really know. It may just be a general hyper-independence and attachment.
Did you feel that, like, if you got married, like, you would have to become dependent, or that, like, that was, like, the role you had to play?
I don't know, because I didn't really think about it. It was like God. It wasn't important to me, and I've only got so much brain space, so it wasn't running. Even when I had serious relationships, it was, I don't want to get married. You know that.
Yeah.
And it wasn't stemming from home. My parents did divorce whenever I was in my 20s, but they were in love whenever we were growing up. And now, I never grew up with like bridal magazines around. My parents got married when I was 3, and they were not super traditional people. And so I didn't think about the world in a super traditional lens, which I feel was part of it. Even whenever you were talking about being able to hold 2 things at once, I was thinking about how different my brain was formed not having religious indoctrination. So black and white thinking wasn't that big of a deal in my childhood brain. Like, granted, my parents were very much, this is right, this is wrong, this is how we treat people, we act with empathy, we accept others. We had a moral sense, but outside of that, there wasn't a ton of black and white thinking going on. So my brain is, I feel, more easily able to be like, okay, well, this is true and this. And I know it must take unlearning for a lot of people who grew up with
big time
religious indoctrination.
I was going to say, you're especially because you were diagnosed with OCD, it's actually you're very fortunate that you didn't experience a lot of religion, because do you know what scrupulosity is? Yeah. So that a lot of people who suffer from OCD and who were indoctrinated in religion do end up having like a lot of
religious OCD.
Yeah, they like suffer a lot from that. And so that's interesting. Like, well, anyway, you're fortunate to not have dealt with that.
In so many ways, I'm fortunate to have had the experience that I had, and in some ways, I'm unfortunate, and that is 2 things being true at once. Yes. 2 things being true at once. Yes. But yeah, for me, just traditionalism was not that important, and like what my life looked like on the outside, or if I was following what other people did, I was fortunate to not be indoctrinated with. So marriage was just not super on the table. I was super close with my family. I was the oldest daughter who will always need to take care of my brothers. I'm the executor of my parents' wills. Like I mean, I am too. Of course you are. So I just felt like, A, I've already got a lot of responsibility and people that I am obligated to. And B, what am I going to do? Let somebody in that close? Like, right. Please. So for me, marriage was never really on the table. And then, I married a man.
You quickly fell in love, and then you quickly got married.
Quickly fell in love, even quicker got married. And I, in general, like in my day-to-day life, I'm a pretty careful, pretty measured person. But one thing I will say I do like about myself is I have never been afraid to take a fucking chance, because I am so careful and so measured, and I think about everything so fucking hard that if I feel something in my gut, in my heart, and in my brain, that's green means go.
Oh yeah, like that's look out, like go. I'm just bulldozing. I have just
gotten the star power on Mario Kart, and I am fucking zooming in life because I have gotten a green light from every part of my existence.
So true.
Yeah, and that doesn't happen very often. So when it does, I'm like, fuck it, we ball.
Yes.
Fuck it, we get married at the courthouse.
Fuck it, we rage. Yes. Like whatever it is.
I quit my job. I do whatever. Like I trust in myself when I feel that it's the time to do something, to do it. And getting married was one of those things for me.
Oh, I'm obsessed. And I love the way you got married too. I think if I hadn't, so I was engaged before I ever met, met Adam. And no, actually I did know Adam when I got engaged. But anyway.
You have to explain it to me.
But I think if I wasn't planning a wedding beforehand and didn't feel as if I needed to follow through with it, then I feel like I would have eloped. I would have done something like courthouse or something with Adam, because it's very me. It's also very us, like me and him, to just like run away from the rest of the world and like go get married. But because I was planning a wedding beforehand, I was like, I feel like I need to follow through with this, or else I'm gonna feel like I got gypped on something.
Sure.
That, I mean, I caused for myself. But I mean, granted, I was also, I don't even know, I think I was like 24 when we got married.
So how the fuck were you supposed to know?
So how was I supposed to know what to do?
You can't know what you
But
can't
looking
know.
back, I'm like, I really support like courthouse or eloping. Like that's such a, I don't know. I think that's such a positive experience for most people.
It was, I wouldn't do it any other way.
Yeah.
And I will say, even now, having friends that have gotten married or are getting married and having weddings, so excited to be a part of those experiences, and I want them to have every single moment that they are looking for in those. No part of it makes me wish I had done it.
Yeah.
We went and got our marriage license and liked the woman who gave us our marriage license so much that I was like, do you want to marry us? And she was like, I never do this, but I kind of fuck with y'all. Yeah, I'll marry you.
God,
and the
I didn't
next day,
realize.
I bought a vintage Chanel blazer and some white trousers.
Yeah, you looked hot as hell.
Thank you.
Yes.
And we got my husband's brown vintage suit at Goodwill.
Obsessed.
Yeah. And one of my favorite stories to tell about this experience, because I think it shows not just something about me, but how it feels to be seen and how it can be good, is the day that we were getting married, the only person that I let come was someone to take photos, because I wanted to have photos for the rest of my life. And it was a friend of ours, but it wasn't one of my very best friends, because I didn't want to feel obligated to invite anyone. I very much wanted it to just be the two of us. I told my family ahead of time. I told a couple of girlfriends. That was it. And
I love that you did that.
I didn't want one person to be there, so someone was like, why wasn't I there?
Sure.
Like, us getting married has nothing to do with anyone else. And
So
that is the
true.
big qualm I have with the wedding culture we have in America.
Yeah.
It's like, you don't owe anybody anything. They don't owe you anything.
Yeah.
It is going to be you and this person in a room together trying to figure life out for possibly the rest of your life.
Yep.
Focus on that dynamic and shut the other shit out.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
it's you and Adam against the world sometimes.
Of course. I mean, it was for many years.
Yeah.
So, like, why we started the podcast in the
Yes.
beginning. It was literally just the two of us, like, being like, hello, is anyone out there?
Yeah. Yeah,
you know?
you're all of a sudden in like Interstellar by yourselves. It's
You
crazy.
literally.
So the day of our wedding, I normally don't wear makeup. And I felt like it's going to be the most special day of my life. That's what
Yeah.
everyone says. It's the best day of your life, whatever.
Sure. Yeah.
And I was like, I've got to wear makeup. And so I went out, I got like fake lashes and some eyeshadow. I didn't even own any. Got some eyeshadow, went in the bathroom, spent like 45 minutes getting ready, glued on these fake eyelashes, which is so hard when you have contacts. Like, I know I've had professionals do my makeup many times, but I haven't been doing it. I was not one of the YouTube girlies growing up watching makeup tutorials. My mom didn't really wear makeup. Me and my mom look completely different, have completely different skin
So it's
types.
not like you were like learning from
Nobody's
her.
been showing me shit.
Yeah.
So I get in there and I put on all this makeup and I come out and my husband's like, you look beautiful. And then he's like, do you feel like yourself?
Oh,
and
no.
I was like, are you kidding me? And we're literally walking out the door and I was like, no, I need to go wash my face. I washed my face. We got in the car and we went and got married and had a blast.
Oh my gosh.
We got married in downtown Nashville, right outside the courthouse.
Yeah.
At 5:00 on a Friday. Not a single person came out of the courthouse during that time. Not a single siren went by. No one came by and honky tonked or hollered. It
Wow.
was literally like the world
Divine.
stopped. It was.
Divine.
And we got married. It took like 15 minutes.
I think I saw you that day.
You did. You saw me outside of Hugh Baby's because I
Was
had
it? Yes.
Yeah, I was getting my chicken sandwich before the wedding, as you should.
Oh my God.
And then,
Hilarious.
yeah, we got married. We went out to a steakhouse, just the two of us,
Obsessed.
and had a steak dinner. Went home and had some French dessert in bed, and that was it. We both went back to work the next day.
That
was life.
obsessed. Oh my God. I'm so obsessed. You know, Adam has Roman numerals tattooed on his hand and people think it's our wedding date, but it's not.
Aww.
It's the day that I told him I was going to break up with my ex. And so he knew he was going to be with me forever.
What is Adam's sign?
What?
What is Adam's sign?
He's a Sagittarius,
okay.
which Sagittarius is my absolute favorite.
Well, yeah,
zodiac
that
sign.
level of passion.
Yeah.
That level of dedication. That level of petty. Yes, bitch.
Yeah,
that's so sweet.
He's
like him
literally
knowing,
amazing.
It's not like that you were his. It's that you were free to make your own choice, and he was pretty fucking sure you were choosing him. That's beautiful.
Yeah. It's the day I got rid of my engagement ring and got my nose ring.
Okay.
So it's like it for multiple reasons, you
Level
know,
up.
means a lot to us.
That's beautiful.
So like I completely understand. And also like for our Valentine's, it's like kind of similar to the energy of like your wedding, where a lot of people like they go out, they make reservations. But for us personally, we do Valentine's, like we order pizza in and we get really high and we like have just like the most honestly the most bro-y kind of hang. Well, like, we have sex beforehand because it's like then I really want to bro out. I can't bro out and then have sex. That's not how I work.
2 minutes before we left the house to go get married.
See,
so
it has to be before. It's like you have to like
you
do
gotta have
that
connection.
The connection,
you gotta get rid of the tension,
and then you could just like relax. And we just like game and like watch movies.
Exist
and, like,
together, because that is what marriage is. And I'm glad I didn't know before, to be honest. I'm glad I didn't have any kind
like
of
the
indoctrination.
expectation.
I'm glad I didn't have expectation. I'm glad I didn't think things were going to happen in a certain time, in a certain way. I'm glad I got to just experience it, because something that someone who is now married and had a big wedding shared with me was that most of the first year of their marriage was paying back their wedding debt, sending out thank you notes, and trying to figure out how to exist together and like bring their families together and all these other things. And I am sure that many people have that experience, and it's beautiful and exactly what they wanted. Love that for them. But for me, just existing with this person was what I knew life was going to be, and what we needed to build on. And for me, with the same way I prioritize everything else outside of that didn't fucking matter to me. And so we eloped, we did it our way, we moved on with our lives.
I'm obsessed.
That was what was right for me.
Right, of course.
And I do highly recommend it.
I did not do that, and I feel like I highly recommend it.
Yeah, a lot of my girlfriends are like, if I had to go back and do it again, I would probably just elope. I never even got to try my wedding cake. So with a couple of girlfriends getting married coming up, one of our shared girlfriends getting married coming up, I'm like, whatever I have to do to make sure that my girl gets to be present on her day, gets to eat what she wants, do what she wants, gets enough one-on-one time with her partner, whatever I can do to make sure that instead of that day being for everyone else or for pictures or for anything else, but it is for the bond that the two of them are going to build, I'm there.
I feel like the next generation of people getting married, not like right lowest, but like I'd say like 30 years from now, 20 years, 25 years from now, I think there will be a lot more people eloping, because I think they're going to like realize, not because I'm judging anyone else's choices, but because I'm anti-capitalism and I'm tired of what we have done to the wedding industry in this country. I hope that is true, and I'm wishing for that. Well, and also I just hope that people start recognizing that things aren't about like tradition. It's not about that. It's not about having to do what you're supposed to do. I think
it's not about what anyone else has done.
Right. And I hope that the next generation kind of sees and is like, we are able to teach them that are like, what is it that you actually desire? Like truly deep down, not like what you've been told to dream about, think about.
One of the most painful things for me to hear someone I care about say is, well, I feel like it's just what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, which is what I was saying before I was like engaged to somebody else. Yeah, I was like, well, I said I was going to. I've made this commitment. I owe Everybody
it to this
sees
person.
it. I just sent out save the dates.
It would be so hard not to never listen to those voices in your brain.
No.
They just tell you to stick in something that isn't right for you.
Yeah, and you're never stuck.
Yeah, you're not ever stuck. That is one of the things that my parents really imparted on me growing up that I loved, was you always have a choice.
Yes, I love that.
You are never stuck.
Love.
And I really took that to heart, and it has caused me to make some really pivotal decisions in my life. And I, love you, Mom and Dad. You did a lot of things wrong, but you ate some things up, and that was one of them.
That's fantastic. I feel the same. I feel bad for my parents, or my mother does listen every once in a while to my episodes, and I'm like, I feel bad, but like I told her long time ago, like if she's going to have problems with it or like have emotional like conflict with it, because in the beginning she was listening and bringing up issues to me, and I told her, and I was like, I will somehow figure out a way to block you. If you can't figure out how to navigate this, because my podcast is going to be where I share my truth.
Yep.
Right. I'm like, it may not be. Also, not everything I say about my childhood is reflected on how you parented me.
Totally.
And that's like something she needed to like learn as well.
I'm sure that's very hard for parents, and not having children myself, I know I haven't had that direct experience, but one thing I will say is we all have different experiences, and they are all true. It's really discombobulating for me to go back home and visit, and I will be like, oh, you guys remember that time, blah blah blah. And then my dad's like, that is not what happened. So-and-so was living here at that time. And then my little brother's like, no, she's right. That happened, but also this. And none of us can agree. And the person in me who wants to be right and wants to be righteous 5 years ago was like, well, we're all going to have to get on the same page. And nowadays I am totally able to sit back and be like, damn, somehow in some universe, all three of these things are true.
It's that nuance.
We're all right. Yeah, we're all right. Like no one's memories are 100% right. Somewhere in the middle of this is the truth of how we all acted, how we all reacted, what was going on outside of those things. And all those things are coloring all of our pictures of each other. Yeah. And so if I'm speaking on something, that is just my experience. That does not mean that everybody in the room felt the same way. It doesn't mean that I'm exactly right. But between me and my therapist, I'm right.
Right. It's true. I mean,
in that room and in this room where you and I are making space for each other, like this is our version of right. And
exactly.
Yeah. But I know that has to be hard for parents. And it's also hard for me as the oldest sibling. I don't know if you've had this experience, but when you feel invalidated because someone else is like, that's not how that happened.
Or when your younger siblings have trauma and you're like, I really tried to help you not have that. I really did my best with you.
Yeah. Something for me is trying to not overshare. Because things were sometimes going on that they weren't aware of, maybe don't need to be aware of. Things were going on in my life that maybe as younger brothers, they don't need to hold and they don't need to make space for.
I get that.
But also sometimes if something comes up, I'm like, well, there is probably a reason or probably a story or factors, but
ways
also,
that you can like let them know,
but sometimes not for everyone to carry. You know, my backpack's my backpack and I got to carry it. And hopefully parents are able to, at their best, do the same.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I'm learning to do that as well.
It's hard.
Yeah. And like I find a lot of, I crave being seen, as we like talked about before. So like a lot of I have to be careful not to overshare in the context of just wanting to be seen, because that's coming from a trauma response versus like sharing, like I'm gonna share the story, I'm gonna share my experience as someone who's like genuinely wanting to relate or wanting other people to feel comfort in that story.
Wanting to connect is a human need.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I have one last question for you.
Hit me.
Okay. So, how do you encourage critical conversations and a curiosity-driven approach in your own life and community?
That is a great question. In my own life, I think people might describe me at times as a pusher or a challenger.
Which is an Enneagram 8, by the way.
I know. So I thought I was going to be an 8, and people in my life would tell me, like, you've got to be an 8.
You do have a lot of 8 tendencies.
I have a ton of 8 and I present as an 8 just like I like to present as a Virgo. Don't worry, I've got this shit together. I'm standing on my own. I'm fine. Which, 5 grows to 8, but like grows to, people love to think that means always in health, but not necessarily.
True.
It means I'm always striving to
go that direction.
Yeah. And that's not always what's best for me.
Yep.
And in my life, I think I will challenge conversation. I will ask questions. I will try to understand. And often to me, I think it's a neutral space. I'm like, we're just sharing thoughts.
Right.
And then occasionally someone who might be a bit softer or be different in personality will be like, you're being really intense right now. And I don't mean to, but it is my hunger for knowledge and for understanding you. Like,
and it is your own comfort.
Yes.
You are comfortable there having that sort of conversation. I keep learning that the phrase of treat others as you would have them treat you or how you'd like to be treated does not work. Yeah. It really doesn't.
Because no one wants to be treated like you want to be treated.
No. Most people don't.
Yeah, same.
And so I find that so frustrating because it's like, in that conversation where you're like, if I'm being more blunt and less emotional, right?
It's because I'm comfortable, baby. It's because I'm trying to get to know you.
I'm comfy and I'm actually trying to make you comfortable by leaving out the frill of the fluff and the sugar coating, because like to me I don't like having to like read between lines. I'm not good at it.
I don't want to have to do it.
I'm like, can you just tell me straight? And so for me, I give that to other people as a courtesy.
Same.
In my head.
Yeah.
It's a courtesy.
Same.
But other people like that frill.
No. That's why I come in here and I ask, like, what are the rules? It's not because I really care for rules. I really don't. I hate them. But I'm going to respect them in someone else's space. So I'm coming in like, where's the line?
Right.
Let me know and I won't cross it.
Yes.
And what I found is, and this is not a disparagement, but a lot of people haven't decided where their lines are, or they've never thought about it. Yeah. So I'm coming in hot and I'm like, where is your line? What do you need? What is your boundary? What's important to you? And they're like, whoa,
I've never even thought of it.
They're like, I'm just vibing. And on the one hand, I'm envious. I'm like, well, fuck, I've never just
but
vibed
they're
a day
but
in my
almost
life.
they're never. You know
You're
what I mean?
not vibing when you think you're vibing.
No, because like they may not know their boundaries, but they certainly need
That's
them.
not a vibe.
Yeah, no.
Not knowing your boundaries is not a vibe.
It's not.
But yeah, like trying to push others is something I've hopefully really gotten better at in the last few years of, A, I'm not everybody's oldest sister, and B, my brothers are getting to be adults, so they're on my level now too. And I don't have a big part of what I've done in my life is tried to put myself in a position where I'm helping others, not in that like Enneagram 2 way where it's full of obvious caring. It's been in more of, I can help you get to the level you want. Do you want to get better? Here are some books I recommend.
Yes.
Do you want that pimple to go away? Here are 7 products I've tried before and they really work. And I just am always trying to help in a knowledge way.
Same.
Not everybody wants that.
No.
Some people aren't ready. Some people are never going to be ready. And it's sometimes stopping me from getting closer to others. So
I just learned to ask if they want to know.
Do you want to be listened to?
Yeah.
This is what I'll say. Like if my husband's complaining about work, or if a girlfriend is complaining to me about something, I'll be like, do you want me to say, I'm sorry, that sucks? Or do you want me to offer my input?
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, they do want your input. But I think opening that door of permission really helps.
Exactly. It does. I think
really
like
helps.
leveling out, you're like, oh, I understand. It's very understandable that you feel this way, like whatever. Just leveling it out at that point, that like baseline. But then you're like, okay, so are you looking for like ways to like potentially fix this situation or alleviate this pain?
Yeah, the thing is, I don't think I always know the way to solve a problem, but I'm an oldest daughter and I'm a parentified person, and I am still finding out how to show love to others. So one of the first things I want to do is, even if I don't know the end goal of what your puzzle should look like, if I care about you and you come to me and you say, I don't know where this piece fits, I am going to come stand next to you and be like, do you want me to take it from you and try? Do you want me to paint it another color for you? Do you want me to read 7 books and figure it out? Because that is a way of me showing love. And I understand it's not always the way that is best absorbed, and I will work on that. But for me, the reason I am trying to get alongside you, and like, if you're trying to get on the horse up the mountain, I'm getting on the back of the saddle. I'm like, let's figure it out, baby. We can do it together.
Yes.
And it is a way I'm trying to show love.
Yeah.
You know, I'm always trying to problem solve, to ask questions, to be curious. And I know for some people that can feel intense, or it can feel like it's because I think it makes some people feel inferior, insecure, like, oh, well, I don't have the answer to that. And what I would want people to know is that is such a valid response. I don't know yet.
Of course.
I've never really thought about that before.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's very real. That's totally okay. Yeah. And if I'm asking you questions, it's okay to say those things.
Yeah.
And I will totally understand where you're coming from. But for people in my life, whether it's critical thinking or cancel culture, or they have a take on something I really don't agree with, I'm not immediately going to be like, you're wrong.
Yeah.
But I am going to ask, how did you arrive at that point? Have you ever seen this other thing that really spoke to me?
Right.
And to me, that doesn't feel like arguing. But I don't know. We'll see. I have my middle brother is an 8. And so anytime I think I'm being really challenging, I think of him.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, you know what? I'm pretty laid
You
back.
really, yeah, exactly. You're like, I'm giving at least options.
Yeah. I don't know what your siblings' Enneagrams are, but for me, it is funny to see how everyone in my family has 8, like, in their tri-type.
I would
There's
say
a lot of confrontation going on in my household.
I would say ours is the same. I don't know what our like brothers are officially. I think they did. I think one of them tested as an 8, which I don't know. But I think if someone came in and like met them and figured out our dynamic, I think 8s would definitely be thrown around. My sister is a 1.
Okay.
And so although that's not 8 to me,
there's a lot of
feels a lot of
my home and in myself, so I get that.
It feels a lot, like, I mean, again, she's Capricorn, so it's like the one she is like the typical, like, there is a right way and a wrong way.
Yeah.
She definitely, she definitely thinks
Capricorn
she knows
and 1 for sure.
Yeah. So, but yeah, our family's very passionate, very expressive, very corrective, and that's hard. Actually, it's one of the biggest lessons. I'm like actually really grateful I learned it when my sister was like a teenager. She's like 15, 16, around that age. So I was like 17, 18. No, maybe a little older. And when I realized like me correcting her, because I wanted to help her be a better person. When I would correct her, I realized it was just like strain on our relationship. Like it just wasn't like, it wasn't actually benefiting. Like I could look from a wider lens and be like, that's not actually helping anything. I don't think she's learning anything when I like correct her in this way or whatever. And so I'm actually really grateful that I had a younger sister at that level, because since then, like I really don't consider myself a person that is corrective anymore, but it's like innate in me, and that I'm consistently, now it's easy for me, it's been years, but I consistently sit back and like try to let other people learn their lessons.
Totally.
And not feel, and it's hard to do that, because you care so deeply. And like even in my relationship with our friendships, right? We said our mutual friend Kelsey. It's like there's a lot of ways, because she and I are really close.
Yeah, you guys are like sisters. From the outside, not having this sister,
yeah, we're like sisters.
To me like you guys are sisters.
And in a lot of ways, I've had to learn that too. That like I care so much about her. There were times in our friendship and our times where I feel like I want to help move her. I'm like, I feel like you should learn this thing. Let me like help you and like navigate. And like, it's true. I think there are like elements to having me as a friend that I am going to help you grow as a person. That's just period. But I think I had like this light bulb moment where I was like, oh, I'm kind of like doing the, like what I was doing with my sister, where I was like, and not just Kelsey, but like other people in my life that have been close with me. I'm like, oh, like I'm correcting you in your response because I'm trying to help you not have this painful emotion again.
Yep.
You know what I mean? I'm like, I see you're in pain. Maybe if you
headed toward pain.
Yeah, or headed toward pain. Like maybe if you see it from this perspective, they're like, why can't you just let me feel my feelings? Or why can't I just like feel this way? I'm like, that's very real. Because to me, you're in pain.
Why would you want to have a
I
negative
want to help
feeling?
you avoid it, you know? And so I'm like I've had to learn a lot within my relationship to Brooke, the relationship to Kelsey, and many other people, that like maybe avoiding pain for them isn't like, maybe that's what I'm not necessarily supposed to save them from it.
100%. But you know what's funny is that's what a mom would say.
Yeah.
You are like parentified in that way as an oldest daughter. And I have that same thing with my brothers. And it's a parentification, or just, it is a level of care that if you never have children and if you don't have siblings, I'm sure you can experience it with friends or something else. But for me, is very much tied to my family dynamic. And it is I can help. I have already walked there.
Exactly.
And sometimes you and someone may be walking the same path, but they're going to take a different trail. They're going to take an offshoot, and you don't know that at the time. But for me, it is like, I've walked that trail and I don't want you to have to. Yes.
Like I've already experienced it. Why would I let you do this? Like why? Yeah, but it's not necessarily our place to do that.
Yeah, but that's hard to accept, I think, for sure. And having one thing that I really like about you, which I don't think I've ever told you, is that, so we share a mutual best friend in Kelsey, and we have a lot in common. And I think similarly, you and I are, like, for better or worse, the term alphas. Like, we really hold our own space. I'm not saying that's just an oldest daughter thing or a 5 thing or whatever. It's just the way that we both are. We like hold space. And for me, I have never felt competitive with you or uncomfortable around you. I like being around people who know the space they take up. That's actually really comforting to me versus people who are a little more codependent or don't quite know their place yet, which is totally valid. But for me, as an oldest sibling, then I'm like, well, I got to help you find your place or make sure I don't step on you. Yeah. And I love being in a room where everybody's got big feet. Yeah. For like lack of a better comparison.
I like that. Yeah.
And the thing about us is, like, we got to know each other as friends-in-law, technically. And
that's funny.
It's really beautiful. I don't know if it's age. I don't know if it's a different way that we've both wound up at that point. I'm not really sure. But for me, I think in high school, having a shared best friend would have been weird. And now it's such a common point for me where I'm like, damn, we both made it to a level in life where we found this wonderful person who we got to fall in love with and like see through life. We both must be really doing something right.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, I do agree that I feel like the taking up space and like the person who knows like who they are, the confidence, like I actually also find comfort in that. So I felt the same way with you. And I was like, yeah, I feel like an immediate comfort because you just like, I know I'm not going to hurt you.
Yeah.
You know, it's the reason why I actually don't like, this is so random, okay?
Oh, tell me.
But it's the reason why I don't like bugs, because I'm afraid to hurt them. Like, I'm afraid to squash them. Like, I'm not afraid of them hurting me.
Okay.
Like, I don't like being around bugs because they're small and they're fragile, and I'm afraid I'll crush. It comes from, like, I crushed a ladybug when I was, like, 5, and it was, like, a traumatic experience.
I used to pull the legs off grasshoppers.
We're not the same in that. Oh, my God. So
okay, I did it one time, and it was really just to scare my younger brother.
Oh, my God. Wow. Okay, so you're also an oldest sibling.
Yeah, which is a real dynamic.
I'm not the oldest sibling. I do have an older brother, 4 years older than me. So I
think that would have helped me.
It would give you a different dynamic. I can't say help or make it worse, but it would give you a different dynamic.
I will say, as I've gotten older, I've shared stories of things I used to do as an oldest sibling.
And you're like, oh, maybe
ways I used to scare
inflict
my younger
fear.
siblings. And when the looks I've gotten lead me to believe that you shouldn't be both an oldest sibling and an oldest daughter. They should be separate. They should be separate.
No,
it's too much power.
Personally, I think that's great. I wish I was. I mean, not really. I love my older brother, but like in a lot of ways, I kind of took on that older sibling role. But I also was teased and picked on, and like, so it's like I kind of had
such an interesting gender role thing.
I won't
make you unpack that, but that is such an interesting gender role thing. And my other girlfriends who are oldest daughters but have an oldest brother share similar stories of like, I did have to carry some of the oldest sibling burden.
Oh, well, I very much did too, because
and that's a gender role thing.
It's gender
you're
role,
a caretaker.
Personality differences between my older brother and I. Also, not something I ever really like cared about growing up, because like he was my brother no matter what. But you know, looking back on things, he also is my half brother, so he had a different another family,
his own
as well as
family
our
with
family,
his own stuff he's bringing in. Yeah,
and
100%.
I was the oldest of all of my siblings that were like my full blood siblings. So in a way, in a biological sense, I was also an oldest sibling of my little clan.
Yeah.
You know 100%. What I mean? So there was like, there's a little bit of everything there. So of course there's things to navigate. I know you also spoke like your husband was the youngest.
Yep.
So Adam, he is also second oldest, and he was given the role of like parental. His siblings, two of his younger, he has 5, there's 5 of them altogether. 2 of his youngest siblings are way younger than him. And he took on major parental roles there. And just personality wise and stuff, his older brother wasn't as older brother vibes. And so
I'm sure personality plays a big part.
It does.
This is kind of funny. I was a really shy child and really introverted and really quiet. And
so then
my little brother was born, my first
brother, yeah.
And something changed in my brain that can't be undone.
Ringleader.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something in the realm of power.
That's so funny.
Thinking I am the leader and getting a little joy in dominating was birthed there that can't be put back in the box. I'll say that.
Okay.
I would have been I think I would have been a little Pisces, dreamy, artsy, shy little girl. And then someone was born beneath me. And my brain experienced a different feeling I hadn't had before.
Fascinating.
I was super shy. I didn't make friends in my preschool and kindergarten classes. They were like, she's a great reader. She's great at tying her shoes. She likes to do things well.
Yeah.
But she's not really interested in the other kids. And then I had a little brother, and I was like, did you know you can make other people do things?
That's fantastic. I love that.
If you say, I bet you can't do that most boys will. And that has stuck with me my whole life.
That's amazing. Amazing. Yeah, my experience is probably a little like a different, because I saw my parents get more stressed as more kids were added on.
Yeah, for sure.
And so for me, it was.
How did they do that? I do step back and look at my parents as people.
Like, how did they have more kids?
It's really interesting as I get older. Now I've surpassed the age my parents were when they had me. And I'm able to
which
look
is
at
crazy.
Them,
I also am past that point.
And I am able to look at them as people and know now what it is to be a whole person. And like, even my dog sometimes is a lot of responsibility for me. And I'm like, I gotta keep this thing alive.
Yes, very much.
And the fact that I was just there needing shit all the time and they were continuing to have them that's a lot. And like, that is another part of looking at people as whole people.
Yes.
You know, as a whole person. And there's
very
so much going
can.
on. And it's given me a lot of compassion, I will say, for my parents.
Yeah. And when we look back on our past memories, a lot of our present moment and things that we learn in this time, in this day, really does affect our past. We think we like can affect just our future, but really we can affect our past a lot.
You're always healing the
You're
past.
always healing. You're
always in that room.
it.
Whatever that room is for you, you are always in that room. Do
you
not
are.
Fool yourself.
Yes. And so now I'm like seeing things. I'm like, oh, that was my mom at 28 with all the things that she had been through and all the kids she had and all the, like, you know, all the experiences that she had and that I now can understand and not just know as stories, but as her, as a human being, as a 28-year-old, a 30-year-old, 32-year-old.
And, you know, I'm not making excuses for any generations, but I am so glad that I'm born in the one where therapy is so openly talked about. And I can do 4 different forms of therapy in a week and I'm not a weirdo.
Right.
And I can talk about it with my friends, and we sit on a podcast and we share ideas.
Right.
And me and my girlfriends talk about these things. And like, there are a lot more resources available now. There are also a lot more problems, but a lot more resources and a lot more things I know are readily available to me. And when I was, say, at my lowest low and I really needed help and I found the group that I'm a part of, I did that online in about 30 seconds. And when my parents had a screaming baby and hadn't really intended to be parents or maybe even get married, I don't know what their goals were at 25, and they had me there while they were trying to grow up, you know, with less resources. I have a lot of compassion for that now, looking back. And that doesn't mean that everything that's happened to me in my life is totally okay, but it also means that people are whole people and you have to look at them with a compassionate lens.
My mom had my older brother when she was 23. 22 even, maybe. So yeah, like young, like that's so tiny.
I mean, I'm still young now. I'm still like, damn,
same. I'm like, I'm still a baby.
Yeah, my amygdala has been formed for like what, 5 years?
That's not enough.
I'm a 5-year-old. Like, I don't know anything.
I know. I feel that way. I'm like, I'm actually grateful. I know we've kind of talked about this before, but I do want to have kids, and I'm actually really grateful to be. I wouldn't even consider myself by the time I have kids, an older mom. I don't even think I'll be in that range. But comparatively to like our parents' age, I will be older. And I'm actually really, really, really grateful that I will be, because I can't imagine being in the place I was when I saw the world through a binary lens and things being right and wrong, and having kids at that time, which I think a lot of our parents probably had kids around that age where like we're trying to find like the yes and no of life. I think that's like our 20s is like trying to like
100%
really pull ourselves towards one direction and then like really 180 ourselves to the other. And I'm really glad I'm now 30. I feel like 30s are where you find a lot of nuance and you find a lot of like holding two truths at once, holding a lot of like space for yourself to change and it not wreck you. Because I think in your 20s you're like, I'm changing, I've changed, I'm not the same person, who am, and it's like, you know what? I am the same. I am evolving, but I'm the same. Like, I'm the same person who cares. I'm the same person who's curious. I'm the same person. So I'm actually really grateful that I'll be one day a mother who's not, I mean, nobody's ever fully ready, but I think I'll be ready to embrace the season of being like, I don't know everything. And I think that's a better place to parent from.
Yeah, I don't know if this is true for everyone, but for me, for certain, my early 20s, I mean, really up until my 30s, honestly, were not a mindful time. No matter how much I tried to.
Yeah.
I wanted it to be mindful. I have always had an acute understanding of the right way to do things and the people who were getting it right and how I wasn't measuring up. But in your 20s, you can't know what you don't know.
No, yeah.
And you have to get to know yourself. And if you've been super parentified, you kind of have to figure out how to be an adult in a world where being an adult doesn't just mean holding your family together now. And so I am so glad that I didn't smack in the middle of trying to find myself, have to take care of a child. I think if you choose to be a parent, you can probably do it fantastically at any age, but it does seem like, you know, I know my parents specifically feel that raising my youngest brother was much different. They were like, we're completely different people. Raising him. We had 14 years to learn and grow and trial and error.
Right.
And my parents will lovingly joke to me now that like, well, you were the guinea pig.
Yeah.
And it's true.
Yeah.
And I think it's really nice that you will be in a probably more mindful space of
Yeah.
your life where you have gotten to spend some time with Lauren.
Yeah.
With Lauren and Adam alone.
Yes.
And build those foundations so that when and if something else comes in,
Mm-hmm.
it gets to have a little more stability and you get to have a little more stability. That's got to be a good thing.
Yeah. I needed that for me. I don't know about everyone else.
Yeah.
Maybe other people are more in tune with their child selves and whatever, but I needed the time
Yeah, absolutely.
to make sure like inner me, child me was like okay and ready to launch that.
And more of an understanding of how much will change. I'm sure you can't know until you get there, but how much your friendships will change or whatever.
Of course.
In my 20s, I wouldn't have had. We're not having children. I'm choosing not to have children, but many of my friends are going to make a different choice.
Yeah.
And we can be this age and sit here and talk about how that'll look different,
Yeah.
how that'll feel to each of us.
Yep.
And in my 20s, I couldn't have had that conversation.
No. Yeah.
Are you kidding?
No.
Yeah.
There's just so many other things we were navigating.
Yeah, and I didn't know myself well enough.
Right.
I was acting off of fear, off of old coping mechanisms, off of insecurity.
Yep.
I feel that I missed out on so much in my life because I was in my head thinking about how I should be being. My
Yeah.
old therapist used to call it shooting all over yourself.
Shoulding.
Yeah. And
I like that.
I did that for the first 28 years of my life. And so I never could have done that in my 20s.
Yeah. Yeah. 25 through 30 was a lot of my identities just breaking down.
Me too. And learning to mindfully connect with myself, with others. And so you can make these huge life changes later. And like
Yeah.
your friendships can come with you.
Yeah.
And things
And
can
evolve. Yeah. As
Yeah.
they do. Naturally. Okay. Well, I think we should probably end the
been 2
convo.
hours.
But no. I don't want to end it. Can you tell people where they can find you? And
Absolutely. Yeah. You can find me on Instagram at Cheyenne Conrady, just like my name. You can find me on TikTok at Cheyenne Conrady. That's exactly like my name. And I don't know where else you'll be able to find me next. I'm kind of figuring that out as I go. But
Yeah.
wherever it is, I will be excited to see you there.
yes, she's an artist too. Like you guys will just like love the things that she creates. I know we didn't like speak on that too much, but
I mean, we did indirectly. We totally did.
we totally did.
Yeah.
But she's amazing at that, like with what she makes, and like she makes it through like a space of like there's a lot of like female feminine bodies and like
Yeah, I mean, we could do another 2 hours on like my relationship with my body as a woman. Yours, I'm sure, the
Yep.
things we've internalized. That could be a whole other topic.
it's a whole other thing. So if you want a part 2
Yeah, let
of
us know.
this of Cheyenne and Lauren, you let us know, because we certainly will. I'm sure we could have another 2 hour
Yeah,
plus
definitely.
conversation just on that. So anyway, well, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having
on
me.
Curiosity. And thank you guys for listening. As always, we love you. And until next time, bye.
Yeah, and stay curious.
Stay curious.
Yeah, absolutely.
Woohoo!